Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you so much. I am honored to have this invitation to speak with all the participants and everyone that is listening, either through Teams or participating through YouTube. I am Dr. Brian Samuel, Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here at UT Arlington. And anytime you're taking time out of your schedule to participate in learning about DEI, that's always news to my ears and just wonderful to hear. So I applaud you and I thank you all for being here today. I was asked to speak briefly about DEI and specifically, what's our vision? What are we doing? What are some of the initiatives and strategies that we have in play today? And so I'm going to try to share my screen here. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, yep. We can. Yes.
Okay. So as I said earlier, I'm Dr. Samuel and Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. You can see the PowerPoint screen, right? Not my desktop.
Yes.
Okay, great. And I have been here about 10 months now. Believe it or not, it's close to a year. And I was hired as the inaugural Vice President for DEI and, had a pretty tall task ahead of me. Thinking about how the University of Texas Arlington would move forward in the DEI space. And so what I'm going to share today is just really at a high level some of the things that we have currently coming down the pike, as well as some things that are on deck for future operations. So let's see. Okay, there we go. We are organized by two core areas, if you will. On the one side, we have what we call our culture, competence, education, and diversity programming realm. And, they're going to do all of our heritage months, all our holidays, programs, and activities around the DEI space that works to raise our consciousness, our awareness, and our level of understanding about different issues across the DEI continuum. On the other side of the house, we have what we call our talent recruitment and engagement arm. And they are going to support us with the recruitment, retention, engagement, and some other type of professional development, career development type of things that will help us grow our workforce and be as diverse as we can to mirror the state, regional, national demographics, as well as our student body. I have an executive assistant who supports me on the day-to-day basis in terms of functions and operations as the VP. And then we have an indirect dotted line reporting collaboration with the Office of Multicultural Affairs that is a part of the Division of Student Affairs. And that dotted line indirect type of reporting structure exists for the purposes of collaborating around programming and making sure that all that we're doing, we're just aligned, we're strategically focused, we're not double or triple dipping and spending resources over and over again, doing the same kind of things because we're not speaking with each other. Sorry. This is the staff, everyone who works full-time in the office. Myself, many of you may know Eunice Carey and Eddie Freeman from Human Resources, who came over around July. Lucinda Burkhall joined us from the Division of Faculty Affairs. Loretta Pequeno was recently the Director of Leadership Services, I think, in Student Affairs. Monique Franklin Pierce joined us from Academic Advising, but formerly in the University of California system as a Director of Women's Program. And Shonda Dixon spent a number of years as an office manager, office director, and most recently from the College of Business. So if you see them around, give them a nice, warm greeting and welcome them and engage them to the best of your abilities. Okay. Our overview, if we can think of it that way, as I mentioned earlier, we got the recruitment and retention arm, and then we got the culture, competence, and diversity programming arm. And our role primarily is to make sure that DEI is a mainstay of our vision and our values, and it is seen as a consistent and steady priority and resource for the university, right? And all of this is for the purpose of ensuring that our climate is conducive for the success of all who join us in our workforce as well, and more importantly, our students who are coming from all around the world, and creating that culture where we can hire, retain, and promote individuals from all various walks of life. When we think about service delivery, we got about 5 or 6 areas that we like to think of. I mentioned earlier, DEI being a resource and a priority for everything that we do. You know, we are a minority institution here at UT Arlington. We also want to make sure that we're supporting programs that are working in the DEI space. Maybe they have a certificate program, maybe they have a minor program, maybe it's a major and a full bachelor's degree level type of program. Maybe it's a syllabus statement or pedagogy around DEI. Maybe it's accreditation. Some of the departments have national or regional accreditation standards that they subscribe to, and we can consult and advise and support those departments with addressing or demonstrating how they have met or exceeded those standards as it relates to retaining or acquiring accreditation. We want to be the consummate DEI professional subject matter experts, performing and providing that high level professional development opportunities for our communities. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be offering 2 such workshops for faculty in partnership with our Division of Faculty Affairs that are going to look at things like getting past procrastination in publication and building networks for publications and things of that nature to help our faculty continue the path of being tenured and promoted as an assistant professor to associate professor, or perhaps even moving from the associate professor rank to the professor ranks. We are working on a number of different opportunities, equally high level for our staff, but those are kind of coming down the pike and not yet fully developed at the moment. All of this, of course, is supporting our hiring and retention and promotion of diverse, underrepresented faculty and staff. And when we say diverse, underrepresented, you know, a lot of people will immediately go to race, but is broader than race, right? When we think about diversity, in addition to race and ethnicity, you also have gender and gender identity. You have religious diversity. You have certainly our individuals with disabilities, right? We have veterans, any number of ways that we are a diverse university. And so we want to make sure that, you know, our campus, our workforce look like society and it look like the students that we serve. And I mentioned previously promoting DEI as a value. So we have 4 primary or overarching goals. As I mentioned previously, we want to raise the consciousness of our university community, and we'll do that through programs, activities, events, bringing speakers to our university, bringing professional development to our university, perhaps supporting people with going to other opportunities that are outside of our university. We want to create a pipeline for recruiting individuals into our workforce, and we're doing that by working with different affinity groups like the Southern Region Educational Board or the American Association of Hispanics in Higher Education, our Higher Education Recruitment Consortium, and any number of different affinity groups and networks that can support us with building pipeline strategies and increasing the diversity of our workforce. We're also growing our own, right? We want to ensure that many of the graduates who are getting our degrees here at the University of Texas of Arlington have ample opportunity to pursue their career aspirations here at UTA if they so choose and they're interested and they have the skills and the ability to contribute meaningfully to the goals and objectives of the university. We want to enhance the representation of our highly qualified, diverse, and meaningfully engaged faculty, staff, and administration. Again, thinking about the pipelines, but beyond the pipelines, we also want to make sure that no matter where you are in the organizational structure, you can see yourself credibly in, every level of positions that are here at UT Arlington. And I probably should have said this earlier, one of our main focus is thinking about our workforce, right? The diversity of our workforce in terms of structural diversity as well as interactional diversity. And then lastly, cultivating and sustaining partnerships with units, departments, divisions, and external communities to optimize student success and learning. And we do that through a number of ways. We engage departments, academic departments, administrative departments, and units. We present workshops. We bring speakers. We support syllabi statements. We discuss pedagogy. Any number of kind of things that support student success in the classroom and beyond. We partner with certainly our student life or student affairs professionals as well as our academic student success and almost anyone that works in this space and engages the diversity of our student body. Some of our programs that are currently in place include, as I mentioned previously, consulting on accreditation standards. We have recently launched our DEI certificate program, and that program is designed to help us learn a little bit about the DEI continuum. It's comprised of 2 core courses, our principles of community, our workforce diversity of the 2 courses, and then 5 electives, okay? So you take 2 core courses or 5 electives, and 5 electives, not or, excuse me, for a total of 7 courses to get to complete your certificate. We are also certainly doing search committee trainings. We've continued that for quite a while now. We recently launched a faculty mentoring apparatus for first and second year tenure track faculty. And we are working on development of a staff mentoring apparatus that we're hopeful will be ready for deployment by maybe August or September of the upcoming year. We're also doing a DEI professional development career watch. And what that is, the tracking and logging of professional development, career development opportunities our staff have participated in, and so that we can know who has what skills and backgrounds and experiences necessary and sufficient for being considered for promotional opportunities when they arise. And we're also supporting them with attending some of these workshops and conferences that will either enhance what they know about DEI or enhance what they know about their specific career, and so that they may be able to make some career advancement opportunities available for themselves. We're doing any number of workshops and events. Last I counted, we had done about 30 or 32 since June of 2021 and had more than 2,000 faculty, staff, and students participated and are engaged in these different activities. And I think it's important to say that these activities are either coordinated and created by DEI staff members or co-collaborated and co-sponsored between DEI and perhaps some other departments like a multicultural affairs, a CMOS, or a Center for African American Studies, or a particular department or college. So our long range plan, as I mentioned previously, we want to get to this place to where we can say we have raised the culture competence of our entire workforce, that 20% or 30% or maybe even as much as 70% of our workforce has participated in one or more DEI programs and activities over the last couple of years. We want to increase certainly our staff diversity and our faculty diversity. And with that, I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
I think we're going to have the questions at the end.
Okay.
And so they're going to put them up on our YouTube channel. So I don't see any yet, but certainly when we get to them.
Okay.
That was super comprehensive. Thank you so much. And it's amazing that you're able to get boots on the ground and in 10 months accomplish what you've accomplished. So thank you so much for what you're doing and for leading the university in DEI.
Thank you. If you'll forward those questions to me, I'll be much obliged to respond to them, because I'm going to duck out now, because I'm double booked. I have another program downstairs that I need to go. All right.
Yeah, we can forward those to you, and thanks for your time so much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Have a good day.
You bet. So our next guest is Dr. Dustin Harp.
Hi there, everyone, and thank you for inviting me today to discuss DEI, particularly in film. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm looking forward to chatting about this. I'm very passionate about this topic. Okay, so now you are seeing my screen, I assume, and you will stop me if you're not. So my name is Dr. Dustin Harp, and I'm director of the Women and Gender Studies program on campus, and also an associate professor of communication. So while my background is mostly in journalism, I really look at all sorts of media, and I look at primarily and teach about primarily marginalized people, marginalized communities within different media forms. So first, before we get started, what exactly are we talking about when we talk about DEI, or, these letters: diversity, inclusion, equity? So let's just put it on the table right here. Diversity is a presence of difference, all right? But that is not enough. We need to think about inclusion, and inclusion is about people, folks who with different identities, feeling or being valued. Okay, so think about it this way: diversity is being asked to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. Or diversity is being asked to the table, but inclusion is being invited to eat. And then we need to think about equity, right? What does equity mean? Equity is an approach that ensures everyone has access to the same opportunities. So what does that look like? Equity doesn't always look the same. So, I've seen this visual before where there's a fence, and there's a baseball game playing over the fence, and a tall person can see over that fence and can watch that baseball game, but someone in a wheelchair can't see over that fence, right? Well, they both have an equal opportunity, we could say. They're both standing at the fence, but they don't have equal access to that baseball game that they want to watch, unless the person with the wheelchair is given accommodations, is considered for their differences and how to make things equal based on their differences. So these are issues, diversity, equity, and inclusion, that we need to think about in together. So now let's switch to talking about media. So one of the really simple ways we can talk about film and diversity, equity, and inclusion is to simply look at numbers and to look at representation in different forms of film or media. So there's a lot of research that people like me do to look at the numbers, to look at content of film and think about how are different genders, races, abilities, religion, sexual orientation, how are these all represented in media? So we're talking about representation. And when you look at numbers, it can be kind of depressing. We realize we really haven't achieved that DEI that we talk so much about, and that grateful we have people like my previous speaker who are working toward that, both, you know, in a university setting. But what about in film, right? So 31.4% of speaking characters were female when looked at the top films in 2016. Okay. Now, you might be thinking it's 2021 now, so things have changed a lot. Well, let me be clear. They have not changed that much. It's just, it takes a while for the research to get done. Speaking roles in 2016's top 100 films, white people spoke 70% of the time. Oh my goodness, can you look at the rest of those numbers? They're pitiful. Black characters only speaking 13% of the time. So even if you have a Black character on screen as what? A background character, someone walking by the screen, perhaps someone working in a restaurant, if they're not speaking, what does that say about diversity, equity, and inclusion? And we look at Asian characters in film, 5.7%, Hispanic 3.1%, other 7%. So there's an invisibility that and being visible is very important. 72 of the 100 films had no Hispanic or Latino female speaking roles. 91 had none for the LGBTQ females, and only 2.7% of characters with disabilities. Okay. All right. Now I'm gonna play a video that we've put together for you.
Yes, Lord, got to get out.
The Mammy.
You tell me who you want done, and I'll do the hell out of it.
The Jezebel.
Shut it up! You have such a big baby.
And the Sapphire. Submissive, sexy, sassy. 3 stereotypes of Black women that return to our screens over and over again.
The Mammy is probably the most familiar to people. It's usually a maid, heavy, taking care of the family.
You is kind, you is smart, you is important.
She is asexual. She doesn't have really a life of her own. She's really only there to support the family.
And probably one of the most famous examples is Mammy from Gone with the Wind.
Just hold on and suck in.
Somebody who is always seeking out to put aside her own desires, her own needs for white families, white men, white women, white children.
Meet Sugar Hill, sexiest, deadliest chicken town.
The second stereotype is the Jezebel, and that's someone who's generally oversexed.
Is mysterious.
Her only power is in her body and in the influence she has over men.
Unattainable.
And then finally, the Sapphire character, I think that's seen in TV more often than anything else.
Get some Kleenex, wipe your nose, because it ain't that damn sad.
The Sapphire is usually sharp-tongued, manipulative woman who emasculates her husband.
Hello, I'm here to audition for the 11 roles Black men are stereotyped to play. Mamadou, non-union. Yo, pass me the rock. Yo, pass me the rock again. Pass me the rock. Well, I don't know nothing about opening no kale refinery, but I know that if you got a song in your heart and a skip in your step, gon' go far, young blood. Yo, so I know there's a killer on the loose, but I left my Ray-Bans in the car, so I'm going to go get those alone. See y'all in a few minutes. Welcome to Africa, my brother. No, do not ask what country. It doesn't matter. For the last time, I do not know where the blood diamonds are. Get out of my country. I'm not here to win. I'm here to make friends. Thank you so much, Miss White Lady, for getting me a bed. I ain't never seen one before. I used to live in the Panasonic TV box out behind the Costco. Son, you're the man of the house now. Dad's gotta go to the gas station, pick up some smokes. It's real far away. 18 years away. I'm in here for 12 counts of battery and 14 counts of possession. And when I get out of here, I'm gonna go see my daughter. I love her so, so much. In the water. Wait, man, I hate this shit. I miss Africa. Also, we were never immigrants. I'm tired of these motherfucking stereotypical roles that these talented ass black men are forced to play. Thank you. Thank you so much.
There were all these things that my parents showed me and that I didn't get to see on television, which was dignity. Latinos with dignity.
You want me? 60 pesos.
A lot of unconscious racism exists because these type of images, these type of perceptions, these type of values have existed so long. They are the norm.
Sometimes the director says, wow, no, he's more street, you know? He's like, talks like this. He goes like this, man.
Follow me, man. I only got one more wire, okay?
We are in a new millennium, and these characters still keep popping up. From Puerto Rican. Are we great at selling drugs?
When someone like Scarlett Johansson is cast as the lead in an adaptation of a Japanese comic franchise, it's important to understand that the ensuing anger isn't just about that movie. And it's not just about Tilda Swinton playing a Tibetan character in Marvel's Doctor Strange, or Emma Stone claiming to be part Chinese and Hawaiian in Aloha.
My dad was half Chinese and half Hawaiian, and my mother's Swedish.
It's how all these casting decisions combined, dating back to the earliest days of Hollywood, have made Asians invisible at best, and at worst, the butt of a cruel joke. That's why fans notice when the characters from the Last Airbender cartoon become much lighter skinned for the live-action movie. And when John Rico goes from being Filipino in the novel Starship Troopers to being played by someone named Casper Van Dien.
I want to try it again, but this time, we need you to do an accent.
The fact is, things aren't getting better fast enough for Asians in Hollywood. In 1944, Aline McMahon was nominated for an Oscar for her yellow-faced role in Dragon's Seed. Later on, Linda Hunt would win an Oscar for playing a Chinese man in The Year of Living Dangerously.
Right.
That was 1982, almost 40 years later. Basically, everything else in the country had changed except white people being cast as Asians. For a solid 2 decades, the Chinese detective character Charlie Chan was played by white men in makeup. But that was the 30s and 40s, right? Well, here's Jim Sturgis and Hugo Weaving reincarnated as Koreans for parts of Cloud Atlas. Everyone remembers Mickey Rooney's infamous 1961 performance in Breakfast at Tiffany's as just fully unacceptable and racist, right?
Mr. Go right.
It was the first time I saw a gay character on TV. It was Andrew Van de Kamp. He was always causing some trouble, unlike me back then.
I've never seen myself fully represented in media, but the first time that I would say something resonated with me, as cliche as it sounds, is the L Word.
A lesser-known show called South of Nowhere. Rosa Diaz from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's kind of a cliche, but the L Word. There's a show called The Bold Type that's on Freeform.
I really haven't seen, like, a bisexual Asian character.
I have never really seen my whole self represented in media.
Now you have shows like Jane the Virgin, which is really cool about including the queer experience within the immigrant experience, which is kind of my experience.
It's so important for queer folks to see ourselves represented in media, whether we're talking about entertainment media or online or even in the news.
Yes. All right. So I know that was a bit of a long video, but I thought it was really important, and rather than me talk about all those issues in media, is to show you the ways we see diversity in our media. So I started talking about the numbers, the representation in terms of numbers. but we also have to go beyond the numbers and think about the stereotypes and the token representation. And you saw much of that. The other thing I think is important is that very last slide that also talks, well, more than the last slide, several people throughout that montage also talk about what it meant as an audience member to see either stereotypes or finally see themselves in media. So not only do we need to think about content and how we're representing DEI, we need to think about what effect that has on our audience and our culture. And then lastly, we need to think about behind the scenes, because women, for example, if you look at films from 2007 to 2016, were only 4.2% of directors, and this is Hollywood films, 13% of writers, 20% of producers, less than 2% of composers, and 34 unique female directors released films between those in that decade. So I want us all to be thinking about DEI, both from content to production to what effect it has on our culture and our audience. And I appreciate, again, that I was invited to speak about this important issue, and I look forward to any questions that you all might have.
Thank you so much, Dustin. That was very, very insightful and super informative. I really appreciate that. We are going to now switch over to Kevin Dang. He's an actor, and he is coming all the way from Atlanta. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi, thank you. Can you all hear me well? Okay, I'm actually in LA right now, but I work out of LA and Atlanta as well. But hi everybody. I just want to say thank you for everyone that helped organize this event today and giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Kevin Dang. I'm an actor. Like I said, I work out of LA and Atlanta. TV, film mostly is what paying my bills these days. But yeah, so I actually grew up in Dallas, and I studied at UTA. I got my BFA in the theater department, but I got a lot of opportunities to work with the students in the film department as well, and I'm very appreciative of for that experience because it helped a lot, transitioning into the professional world. But when it comes to diversity and inclusion, I think. For me, I can't tell you how much that means to me. And I feel from the bottom of my heart that I am a product of what happens when you do incorporate diversity and inclusion into, mainstream media. My story is after I graduated high school, I was working at AMC Theaters over in Firewheel Mall. It's in Garland. I don't know if some of you may be familiar with that area or not, but I was sweeping seats, selling popcorn and tearing tickets. And one day, one of my coworkers said to me that he's like, "Hey, you look like that Asian guy off of The Walking Dead." And at that point, I hadn't heard of the show, and I had never seen an episode. But the fact that there was an Asian guy that, reminded somebody else of me it was kind of like eye-opening for me. It was very, it was surprising, I'm not gonna lie, because at that point in my life, I saw little to no Asian actors on screen. And they were either like kung fu masters, like, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, or the offensive stereotypes like the ones that we saw in the video earlier. There was just no, like, an everyman, like just an ordinary Joe Schmo guy that just so happened to be Asian like me. But, seeing somebody on TV that looked like me, talked like me, and acted like me, it touched my heart and it brought a smile to my face. That actor, he played the character named Glenn, but the actor's name is Steven Yeun. After his stint on The Walking Dead, he went on to do like multiple, feature films, and he was even nominated for an Oscar for his performance in Minari, which is, its history. So it just goes to show the effect of something like that. So yeah, it was then and there that I decided that I wanted to be an actor. Because I lived in Dallas at the time, I remember telling my friends and my family, and I was kind of ridiculed for that because they're like, really? You, an Asian guy wanting to be an actor? We're like, good luck with that. And I understood that because, at that point, the representation levels for my demographic was relatively low. And even though we're seeing a lot of progress over the years, I think we still have a lot of ways to go. But, this is after college, I spent a couple of years in New York, and this is my 4th year in LA right now. And my journey so far has been full of invaluable life lessons. And I've had my struggles along the way, and I've had my successes along the way as well. And I've gotten to work and meet with some incredible people. Someone that I personally aspire to, other than Steven Yeun, is another actor. He's Korean American. He's an actor, filmmaker named Dustin Chan. And he started out in the early 2000s when that pool of Asian actors was incredibly smaller than it is now. He started out as an actor on Nickelodeon, and he himself had his fair share of trials and tribulations as well. And he talks about how one day he went into an audition and the casting director was like, yeah, that was great, but can you do it with an accent this time? I really think it could be better with an accent. And he just walked out. He walked out, he went home, and he expressed his frustrations in an article, and he published it online. And, I feel like with what he did, it kind of just set an example for everybody that we don't have to do that anymore. That's not the kind of roles that we want to do. But over the years, he stuck with his visions, and he went on to write and direct 3 feature films. And now he's directing a series on Apple TV called Pachinko, which is based on the award-winning book. So, to me, that's incredibly inspiring that, like, if things aren't going your way, you can change the narrative, write your own stories, and have your own voice be heard. But now I feel like it's a great time. I think with all of the multiple streaming platforms out there, there's so much content to be told and so many stories that are dying to be heard. And I think it's a great time to hop on that train. Sorry, sirens. I live in the city, so it's, part of it. But I honestly feel like if I were to be born in a different time, like if I were to pursue this acting dream as an Asian American in the, 60s, 70s, 80s, even up to the early 2000s, I wouldn't be given the opportunities that I'm given now. I remember when I first started after I graduated from UTA, I was in New York and I was auditioning for like restaurant worker or delivery boy #1. And, I would have those under 5, those U5 lines where it's just like, hi, how can I help you? Or, oh, he went that way, or stuff like that. And these characters are they're flat, they're they're like just 2-dimensional and they have no depth to them. But just, this month or this year alone in 2022, I've gotten the opportunity to audition for such like meaty roles and stories that represent my community, my demographic. And it brings like chills just talking about it. But I mean, I'm very honored and I'm grateful to be on this journey. And, every day that I wake up and I get to follow this dream is a blessing. And however I can give back any way I can, I'd love to. But yeah, I mean, in short, thank you everybody for your time and your listening. And yeah, I mean, and I'd be happy to answer any questions down the line as well.
Thank you so much, Kevin. And it's really great to see you again. I remember seeing you in a bunch of our films when you were here at UTA, and it's great to see that you're doing so well.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Andy Rice.
Hello, everybody. How are you? My name is Andy Rice, and I am an assistant professor at Miami University, and I'm here to talk today about Edit Media, which stands for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion in Teaching Media, and I'm the chair of the teaching committee for this group. So I'm going to open up my PowerPoint here. And let's see if I can do this. Okay, so actually I need to try one more time. Okay, so Edit Media is a national movement of media production and studies faculty who are committed to following equity, diversity, and inclusion principles in their teaching. We have a list of 10 best practices in the classroom, as well as resources for students and institutions that would like to improve the way they think about these concepts in media teaching. This is part of a broader website with other resources, which I'll talk about momentarily. We have a database of teaching materials, and we're an organization that also develops, hosts, and promotes panels and talks on equity, diversity, and inclusion in media production. So you have a coalition of folks across the country. Most of us are involved with the University Film Video Association. And we really think this is a pivotal moment for transforming the ways that we teach and think about media making. This has several factors. Of course, there's the decreasing cost of the materials required to make media, so that you don't have to just do it in a professional film school. You can now think about media production in a liberal arts context. We think about production skills as key aspects of 21st century civics, and there's momentum in the industry right now for more inclusive forms of storytelling. So we try to promote these kinds of things as a group. A couple recent projects to make you aware of, and I'll show kind of the website in a moment. First, we have the Intimacy Coordination Guide. This is a relatively new publication on the Edit Media website about how to think about consent protocols around scenes with intense physical contact of either a sexual or violent nature. So how to script that kind of thing, how to work with actors. It's a very comprehensive guide. We now have the FemX Film Archive on the Edit Media database by Irene Lustig and Julie Wyman, which is a collaboration with students in their classes to interview feminist experimental filmmakers. There's a very long list of these folks there. In any of your classes now, you can add to it. There's an option to do that as well. We've done a national survey on equity, diversity, and inclusion for production and media studies students that we're thinking about how to publish. And we've got a dossier in progress on media-rich production teaching, particularly around these areas, to think about EDI as well as technical training and hands-on forms of learning. And so I want to talk about that more specifically with editing, because we have this gunsmoke problem. Well, there is an editing exercise in production classroom that dates back to the 1950s TV show, because somewhere along the way, somebody got a hold of the rushes for it, and it became this very easy way to teach a series of techniques with continuity editing. Unfortunately, the scene itself is quite dated. It's a sheriff and a outlaw fighting over a damsel in distress in the street. So while you might learn the timing of a punch, you don't learn the kinds of values that we would like to bring into our classrooms. So Edit Media has a couple resources that I wanted to point to here. And I think I'm going to switch out of this. So the first is called Scary Lucy. Scary Lucy is a 20-minute film about a stand-up comedian and her female partner coming to terms with the threat of breast cancer to their relationship. It's also about plotting to remove this notoriously ugly statue of Lucille Ball that was actually unveiled in Celeron, New York in 2012. So it has this kind of humorous quality to it. And I wanted to show just the first 30 seconds of this film. Let me see if we can get this up here. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is the first 30 seconds, and then I'm going to talk about how you can use this in a classroom. It's really fun.
Oh, no. What's wrong? Biggest night of my life, and I've fallen to the communists.
You what?
The Red Wedding, Shark Week. Do you have anything in here? Oh, I don't know. What toys are these? This is a child's purse. They pay me to be funny, not be an adult. Oh my God, there is so much Pez in here. We're gonna have Oreos for dinner?
Okay. So you get the sense of the pacing of it. There's a lot of kind of frank discussions about things and humor. And I wanted to show the exercise, which is linked on the Edit Media site. And this is what the Edit Media homepage looks like. This is under Teaching Materials. But there are two scenes from this film that Sheila Schroeder, who is a professor at Denver University, that uploaded this to Edit Media, has contributed. So everybody has access to this stuff if you'd like to teach it in your classroom. First, there's a shot list for this scene that you just saw, and it goes on for another minute. Script supervisor's daily log, so that students can look at these kind of notes that are taken as the shoot progresses, what kind of things are working, what kind of things aren't. Script for the scene. And an hour of the raw footage. This is a full hour's worth of material, multiple takes. You can see the ways that the actors sort of work through their lines differently, and they change little subtle things along the way. The full script for the full film. And then a footage log, so students can actually watch this raw footage and make notes about what things they think are important here and how they might edit this piece together, and then they can do it. So this is a sophisticated editing assignment. In the Scary Lucy editing exercise archive, there's another scene. This is more for introductory level students. It's a scene that comes later on in the film where they're plotting on how to take the Scary Lucy statue and throw it in the Hudson River. Another very funny scene, a little bit simpler. So this one is great for fiction editing. And I wanted to point out one other one. This was from a film that I worked on with director Zainabu Davis called Spirits of Rebellion, Black Independent Cinema from Los Angeles. It's a historical documentary about the LA Rebellion film movement. This is also accessible through the Edit Media site. And this one teaches more the skills that you would need if you were putting together a historical documentary. It features a very brief interview clip, or two very brief interview clips with Ed Guerrero, who is a historian of Black cinema, and has written the book Framing Blackness, which we teach from in our intro level class here. He's telling the story about growing up in Los Angeles during the Watts Rebellion, what it was like to be there and to see these things happen. And then there's a finished scene, and students have all the materials they would need to make a scene themselves out of this 3 minutes of material. So they learn how to work with music, photographs, scan of a newspaper headline to do an animated move across it, balancing voice with through sound mixing with other kinds of materials there, and significantly working with newsreel clips where this event that Ed Guerrero remembers as a rebellion is framed as a riot. So students have to deal as well with the technical aspects with reappropriating these materials for events that have a limited set of archival resources. So there's a critical conversation to be had there about how we think about history in different moments in time. And with that, I think I am going to turn it over because we are relatively short on time. I know, so let me stop this here, and I look forward to questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate it, and that's really, really great lesson plans that you have there. I look forward to looking those over. Our next speaker is Caitlin Horseman.
Hello, everyone. I'm Caitlin Horseman. I am a professor at University of Missouri, Kansas City, and I am going to talk about Edit Media from a student perspective. So let me share my screen. All right. So everybody can see my PowerPoint? It's okay? All right, excellent. Yes. So in addition to the Edit 10, which is advice for faculty to include equity, diversity, and inclusion in their teaching, we also have advice for students called the Student 7 that gives you a chance to sort of think about some ways that you can impact your own education in the direction of embracing equity, diversity, and inclusion. The first suggestion in this list of 7 tenets is watch the world. Get outside of your comfort zone and watch media that reflects points of view you've never imagined. To broaden your cinematic horizons, watch work from other countries, from earlier eras, and a variety of genres. Traditional and mainstream media help create stereotypes about race, gender, class, and other aspects of identity. They also reflect only a limited set of possibilities of what media can do. Watching broadly can help break the mold and introduce you to entirely new ways that people have expressed themselves creatively in image and sound. So watch well and screen widely. So I thought what I talk about today in my brief time with you is how you might do this for free and in places you might not expect online. So my first suggestion of places to find interesting things to watch that you may not have seen is archives. There are many more than just these two, but these two are probably my top picks if you're going to get started watching films from an archive. If you haven't been to the Internet Archive, it has much more than films available, and everything there is free, including there's a lot of free footage that has a Creative Commons license. So if you're looking for B-roll or other kinds of found footage, good for that, but also includes many films and lots of films that are in the public domain that are from earlier eras and so on. And then a newer project, the Black Film Archive, is a register of Black films that were made from 1915 to 1979 that are currently streaming. So not all of these are free to access, but certainly a really important resource to see films that you may not know about. And you may or may not know that there is a whole history of Black filmmaking in the US that is as old as any other film history, as old as Hollywood history. It's just much less accessible. So Black Film Archive is a great place to start to see those films. Another place to think about looking for films that might expand your cinematic repertoire are national film organizations. I have two English-speaking ones here. There are ones in other countries as well. The BFI, the British Film Institute, and the National Film Board of Canada both have free access to free films online. Some of them you can only watch in Canada or in Great Britain, but there are also those that you can see in the US. Certainly a worthy way to explore the cinemas of other cultures and national cinemas that aren't the cinema of the US. Some suggestions for streaming services beyond the ones that we are all familiar with. And I will say that Netflix, Hulu, even Amazon are doing a better job of foregrounding material made by, by makers of color and that embrace other experiences. But some free resources, and Mubi isn't free for students anymore. It was for a long time, but some curated resources that might be interesting to you. Canopy, and UTA is a participant in Canopy. This is through the library. If you go to your library's website, public library, or the university's library, you are able to search a gigantic collection of films and watch them for free. And it's just like any other streaming service. It looks really good, so great quality. And then Mubi is a really interesting streaming site. It is a curated group of films that changes every month. And it is free for 30 days. So if you just want to check out what it's like, there'll be historical films, international films, and new releases all in the same place, shorts as well, documentaries. So a lot of variety there. One of the things that COVID has given us that's maybe a way to think of it as a benefit is a lot of festivals have been offering free materials online so that you can just watch the films in their festival without having to pay for them. Or watch the films in the festival by paying a small fee. I went to Sundance for the first time this year, thanks to the online version of the festival. The PBS Short Film Festival is always free. It's a great resource if you're making short films and you want to see some that have been in a competitive process and that are excellent. But one that's coming up, an experimental film festival, Prismatic Ground, it's coming up in May, is free, and you can just go on the festival site and watch the films that will be also screened at the festival. A great place to start seeing other kinds of film types are the Vimeo staff picks and Short of the Week. If you're not aware of these sites, they're a good way to get to know independent filmmakers. But I would say probably the best place to see films being made outside of the mainstream by filmmakers who are interested and engaged in questions around diversity, equity, and inclusion would be individual filmmaker websites or their Vimeo pages. And Kelly Gallagher and Sky Hopinka both have full films on their both on their Vimeo pages and their websites. And those, if you haven't seen their films, I would highly recommend them. Kelly Gallagher is an animator, and Sky Hopinka is a documentarian whose work is more experimental than you might expect. So I think I made it in my 6 minutes. Just some suggestions for taking a look at things you might not otherwise seek out.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. Those are some great resources. Appreciate that. Our next guest is Les Gaddis, a DP.
Hello, everybody. So,
a lot of irons in the fire and very, helping keep the DEI thing moving, and it's so important. So thank you. Thanks for bringing up the next generation, helping to do that as well. So we are to our Q&A session now. I don't know that I see any questions yet on the chat here, but now would be a great time. I think we might have a few minutes to be able to fit some questions in if anybody in the YouTube audience has a question that they'd like to ask.
What about anybody in the in-person audience?
I have a
Could I have a
question.
question?
I have a question.
Yes.
Can I?
Question, please.
Perfect.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, where do you find people, or where do
Your experience, how flexible, and this is for anyone who would like online as well as here in the studio, in your experience, how flexible are directors and producers to rethink the ethnicity of their characters to have a more inclusive cast? And if anybody online and or in the studio would like to.
For me personally,
We do have another question. I would love to know from Carolyn, what makes a great reality show? How is that different from narrative? Let's see, there is another question. Were there moments, and this is for anyone, I believe, were there moments in your career where you experienced microaggressions, and how did you deal with that? And that's, what again is online and in the studio, anybody who's experienced microaggressions and dealt with them in some way. Our next question is, Les, do you enjoy working on more independent sets or big budget films? Do you see better diversity or opportunity easier in either?
Um,
Let's see here. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of diversity during the creative process from development up to production? Great. Well, thank you so much. And we have, let's see, and looks like one more question. If Kevin, are you still here? Kevin Dang?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Wonderful. Got a question for you. The person would love to know if you've seen change happening in a unique way in Los Angeles or Atlanta.
Yeah, I would say like the biggest changes is that like everything is self-tape. Now I haven't yet since like the pandemic had a in-person audition where I had to go into a studio or like a casting office and be in front of camera. All the things that I've done, I've taped here in my own apartment, which is great because it kind of gives you the opportunity to do as many takes as you want, or you're doing it in the comfort of your own apartment, so the nerves kind of go away. But that, as well as like in showrunners, writers, directors, producers are more so like there are people of color that are taking those positions now, and they have more of a say, and they're really advocating for the actors of color as well. So I think that seeing that is pretty it's pretty new to me, at least. But yeah, I think those two things like are the two newest, or the two changes that I've seen slowly happening in those two cities.
And in terms of casting, is it starting to make slight changes, do you think, or roles and meaningful roles?
Yeah, slowly but surely, I think it is happening. I think we're always gonna have those day player roles out there where it's like all ethnicities and stuff like that. But as I mentioned earlier, I just like we're in towards the tail end of pilot season, even though pilot season is like kind of dying out, but like, we're in the tail end of pilot season this year, and I'm seeing a lot of actors talk about like auditioning for these very multi-dimensional parts, like series regular roles, where it's like I never thought I'd see this happening. Like, and I'm getting to partake in that as well. So, it's a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much for your insight. Well, I think we're at our time, and I want to thank everyone who participated.